Welcome to Stories Unveiled, a captivating interview program on Kiriaku Waves Radio, where we warmly invite you into the personal journeys of inspiring individuals. Each episode brings you face-to-face with people from diverse backgrounds who have overcome challenges, pursued their passions, and are making a difference in their communities. Through heartfelt conversations, we explore their experiences, struggles, and triumphs, offering listeners a chance to connect, learn, and find encouragement in their own lives. Join us as we tell these stories together, celebrating the resilience and strength of the human spirit. Stay tuned to Stories Unveiled on Kiriaku Waves Radio, where together we celebrate the rich tapestry of our shared humanity.
This is KWR interview. We are meeting at our home. It's not in my regular studio. That is the KWR studio. We are out here in the living room with my good friend and colleague minister, Reverend Dawn Gikandi from the P.C.E.A. Church in Kenya. And P.C.E.A. stands for the Presbyterian Church of East Africa. We are interviewing at KWR, where we tell our story together. And this is a great moment to hear from a woman of God, a minister, and a friend, a colleague, and all those good things. And we are waiting to hear from her. I can't wait to interview with you, Reverend Dawn. So karibu hapa kwetu. This is our home, and I hope you feel comfortable in our home.
I do.
And also for the time that you have been here in Southern California. Mm-hmm. So let's begin by asking you to introduce yourself to our listeners and to our viewers.
Thank you, Reverend. You've already done a very good introduction. I'm Reverend Dawn Gikandi, daughter of Gikandi and Wangoi Kubai. I am honored to be here. It has been amazing to be in California. And yes, I am serving with the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, P.C.E.A, as a chaplain.
So where were you born? Were you born in the United States, in Kenya?
No, I was born in Kenya, Eldoret, to be specific. That's where my parents were working at the time. So I was born in Eldoret and stayed there for the first 4 or 5 years of my life. Then we moved to Nairobi, later moved to Roiro. That's where the family settled. And now I call that home, though my ancestry is in Nyeri, Mount Kenya. And of course I move as work allows, but still go back to family.
So for those who may not know where Eldoret is in Kenya, and it is in the western part. Is it western? In the Rift Valley. In the Kenyan Rift Valley,
yes.
Which runs all the way from Israel going down all to Tanzania and Malawi. Mm-hmm. So when you say you are originally from Eldoret, mm-hmm. and you did mention that is where your parents worked, mm-hmm. What kind of work did your parents do?
Okay, my dad was a food scientist, so at the time he worked with Unga. Over the years, worked with farmers' toys, so his was mainly food, value addition and production. Mom is a teacher. Back in the day, she was a secondary school teacher in a secondary school, a day secondary school in Eldoret. Yes, that was when they got married. She moved there, where my father was already working, and we stayed there for quite a while before moving to Nairobi.
And you said your original home place is Nyeri, which is
Mount Kenya.
Mount Kenya region?
Yeah, Mount Kenya region.
Okay, and where in Nyeri?
In Nyeri, Mathira,
Okay.
Mathira, but specifically a place called Unjiro. It's very near Karatina. Actually, we call Karatina our shopping center. So there's a small village called Ojiro. That is where we call home.
Yeah, my grandmother was actually born in Ojiro. So we can talk about that later. We might be related. I don't know. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. Do you have siblings?
I do. I do have 3 siblings. I'm the firstborn. Then I have 2 sisters and a brother, in that order. And they're doing different things with their lives. My dad passed on last year in April. So now, and one of my siblings is married. So I'm blessed. We have another generation also in our family. And of course, in Kenya, everybody's family. So we live together and we relate well.
And did you go to school in Eldoret or you started off in Nyeri?
I almost did, but just about the time I was to start school, I'd even been booked a place. We needed to move to Nairobi, so that opportunity was not fulfilled. So I started actually schooling in a small kindergarten in Buruburu. Then after a while, I went to Mountain View School, which is in Kasarani, still in Nairobi, behind Safari Park, where I was for about 7 years. Most of my primary school, actually from pre-unit, that term onwards to class 7. Then I went from class 7 halfway to finish my standard 8 or class 8 in the Road Academy. And from there I went to State House Girls High School in Nairobi. I did a few other courses, but mostly from there, other than short courses, online ones, and others physical. I did my degree in St. Paul's University, Limuru, the main campus, which is in Limuru. That is where I did my Bachelor of Divinity.
So you're basically a Nairobi girl, even though you started up in Nyeri, then moving to Eldoret. It seems like you have lived in Nairobi most of your life.
Exactly.
And that's where you would call home, even though you have the rural place.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely. The one thing I took from my rural place is mother tongue. That was very important for my family. And also I lived there for about 5 weeks doing my community service. There's a time I did a mathematics degree that I never finished.
Oh.
Part of it, we needed to do community service, so I did it at Jamii Hospital in Karatina. So, yeah, to be honest, most of my life, because even after I was ordained in Juja, I served for more than 7.5 years in Nairobi, the Eastlands.
Okay, we'll come back to part of ministry and what you do in ministry, but let's continue tracking that journey. So you said mathematics. Were you going for a degree or a diploma or what was it? It was a degree in mathematics.
Yes, and a minor in computer science. I think I was very ambitious.
You were quite ambitious, yeah.
Yes, though as I've told you, I in second year I dropped off. Mostly because of the living conditions, where the school was. It was a relatively new university. The commute was quite difficult, though they would provide school transport. Where we were staying and where the university was, the traffic in Nairobi back in the day before the superhighway was just something else. So it took a lot. Drained me, and there wasn't enough time to concentrate on my studies, and I felt I was not getting where I wanted to be. And at the same time, I still had this pull towards theology that I was really fighting.
Yeah.
I think I can relate with Jonah in the Bible.
Right. So how was growing up? Could you talk to us about your growing up and in both in Nyeri, Eldoret, and Nairobi? How was that life?
Growing up was growing up. I didn't have anything to compare it with, but to be honest, I had an amazing family. My family Very strict. I didn't like that about them. But they were the people to make sure you get out of your shell. You do your very best. I was never hidden. I knew I was the firstborn and I needed to take responsibility for my actions and set a good example for my siblings. I had to make the most of every opportunity. My parents gave their very best to me. They sacrificed so much for all of us to go to the best that they could afford, that is our schooling. So for me, growing up was that, and I came from a very strict Christian background. I'm a third generation Christian on my father's side and fourth generation Christian on my mother's side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And definitely, we all know that you're able differently than most of us. And were you born that way, if I may?
No, it's okay. It's a very good question, actually. Yes, I was born that way. And from what I know, my mother had an accident while she was expecting me. And the impact of the accident actually affected my motor skills, my movement, my limbs. And at one point, the medical people did not give my parents any hope of my life being okay. Because after that accident, first of all, my heartbeat could not be detected. They were told there was not much hope. In fact, technically, I was not to be dead. They asked my parents to have me removed and spare my mother's life, which they would have done. But in the small hospital that had only one theater, a greater emergency happened, and my mother was requested to let the other patient who was really badly off to go first. And within the time that they operated on the other patient, my heartbeat started again, and my parents were told, still, please just remove the child. May never walk, may never talk, may drool, may have mental issues. There was a long list of what could go wrong. And other than I'm a bit slow, I cannot go upstairs, I easily trip and fall. I'm okay, very much okay. I can think, I can talk. Yes, so what they predicted, and I don't blame them, did not come to be. I now see what my parents were talking about, because when they were told that, my father was away at work. He had not arrived yet. My mother said, if that be the case, God will give us grace to take care of that child. We are not removing that child. So they tried to talk to my father before he saw my mom. But again, God in his own way, my father told them, whatever my wife has decided. He didn't know what the wife had decided. In 1982, we didn't have mobile phones.
Yeah.
So they couldn't remove me without my parents' consent. My mother has refused. My father has supported my mother. So they had to let me live. At one point, that really depressed me, because I thought it would have been an easier way out of problems and challenges.
Before you talk about that, what exactly do you mean by removing you? I'm not sure I understand.
Like a medical abortion.
Oh, medical abortion.
Yes,
Okay.
that is allowed if it is to spare the mother's life. Not just because somebody feels I don't want to be pregnant anymore, but at the point when they suggested it, when my heartbeat was not being detected, of course that means the child is technically dead. So there's no point of keeping a baby that is not alive. That child will affect the mother. In fact, the mother could even die.
Yeah.
So in such cases, a medical abortion is permitted.
Okay. So basically, you are a miracle baby, if we may.
Yes.
In that the doctors didn't believe or didn't think you are alive because you were not breathing or still in your mother's womb. But that split moment of deciding, hey, you go first.
Yes.
That really brought you back, and in a second, people now knew, your mother knew that you were alive.
Yes, though they didn't believe her at first, and they told her she was imagining, and she told them she knew she wasn't. But should she be imagining, if they do the check, whatever they check with, they could just verify. So she insisted on that. And finally they accepted to do whatever tests they could, and they said, yes, the heartbeat is there. But the quality of life is not assured.
Yeah. I can imagine how difficult that was also for the doctors, because it's not like our modern day, technology was not the way it is today.
Exactly.
Even trying to determine whether you are living or not. But your mother continued believing that, what does that say to you, or what has that said to you about your mother for the longest?
I knew, whether I liked it or not, my parents believed in God with every fiber of their being. And whether I liked it or not, I had to believe in that God. Because whichever way, they wouldn't doubt him, even when I had my own doubts. Because I would ask them, if this God is truly good, why will he permit me to face all these challenges? Sometimes people are unkind. Sometimes I want to go places I am not physically able. And they would answer me at the level I was. At one point, she actually read to me the Bible about a man who was blind. And it was written in scripture in John chapter 9 that his blindness was to bring God glory. So I'm thinking, there's a reason, but still, these challenges are a bit too much for me. So yes, my parents, regardless of the pain and agony, they still believed in God, and they will, I know, to the last breath.
Yeah. And, when we started off, you started off very positively. If we had not talked about your challenges, and if we are not seeing you, one would believe that the life that we are talking about here is like a life like any other child. Now, when your father came, you said he was not there.
Yes.
But he knew you were just about to be born. A baby. There was a baby to be born. Your mom is in the hospital, and your dad comes and find out that this is what is going on. How did he react?
He was walking away. We are in Eldoret, where the accident happened.
Okay. Oh, by the way, was it a car accident? Or?
Yes, somebody was speeding.
Okay.
And Mom was crossing a road. So she was thrown off and landed. So my father at the time, his work had taken him to Nakuru, another town. So that was the time that they had to call the company for, please call so-and-so. He comes to the phone, please come to the hospital in Eldoret, your wife has
So
been
this whole process is happening because your mom has been knocked down by a vehicle.
Yes.
She's taken to the hospital, and this is the point at which they are determining whether to save the baby or the mother.
Okay, there's no baby being saved because already they think the baby is dead. So they want to save the mother.
To save the mother at that point in time. It's not something that waited a little longer and then it was time for her to go for maternity.
No, at that point she was about 5 months expectant.
What?
About 5 months.
Oh, wow.
Into the pregnancy, yes. Because what had happened, she had had some complications.
Okay.
And the doctors had suggested bed rest. And she had gone on bed rest for quite a while. Then October comes. This is October 12th, 1982.
Okay.
In that small town, in the school she was the only grammar and literature teacher. And here we have a class going to their national exams, our Kenya secondary school examination exams, the K.C.E.A. And she remembered she'd been out of school for a while and there are a few things she needed to do to prepare the students.
Okay.
So she decided, why don't I just take a matatu? Matatu is our public service vehicle. Instead of walking, she would walk. But now because she doesn't want to strain, she thought of taking the public service vehicle. And if you know anything about Kenya, you have to be on the side the vehicle is going to, otherwise they will not stop.
They will not stop, yeah.
Yeah, so she needed to cross that tiny road to be on the side that the vehicle is that's the tiny road that she was hit.
Yeah.
Yes.
So did she herself recover from the accident?
She did, though she had a few injuries. Her knee, there's an elbow and an eyebrow. That made her knees a bit weak, moving forwards. But she was okay. She got 3 other children after that, and they were very okay. So we thank the Lord.
So how long did you stay in the hospital? Because you're 5-month-old.
So after they did the first aid and stitching her up a little bit, where she had a few injuries, and then my parents have refused to have me removed. So I hear they just observed her for a while, and then suggested they go back home, take it easy, but in case of anything. So I think she spent just a little while. I'm not so sure how long it was, but it wasn't long, to go back home and wait for the EDD. The expected date of delivery was around mid-February. So, and I was born end of January, on the 30th of January 1983.
Almost full time.
Yeah. So plus or minus 2 weeks is okay. And then it came natural labor.
Oh, wow.
That was another whole story in itself because they had bought an old vehicle, because where they used to stay, getting help at night was a bit of a problem, and you don't know when labor will come. So they had this old vehicle that sometimes needed to be pushed to start off.
Their car now.
Yes. So one time on a Sunday, I was born on a Sunday, that 30th of January, they went to church. My grandma, mom's mom, had come to stay with them just to assist. They went to church, and after the service, they get home, and there are a few visitors. My grandmother has lived in Garissa for most of her adult life, has worked there. So the DC and the wife happened to be around town, so they came over for lunch. A friend of my
DC
father's...
is the district commissioner.
The district commissioner. Back then, of course, now they've changed title. So he happened to be around town, so they came, the DC and the wife, the district commissioner and the wife. A friend of my father's was also around for lunch, and some people they were staying with. So as they are finishing their lunch, she feels the water break, and she informs them. And this district commissioner offers to take mom to hospital in his car. So they go, the DC, his wife, my grandma, Shosho, and mom in the DC's wonderful car. Dad and his friend, who was with them, decided to go look for the doctor. Because they thought, being a Sunday, unless he had a specific client or patient in hospital, he may be off duty. Because that hospital, the doctors used to go when they had patients to see. So they leave some to hospital and some to the doctor's place. And when they get there, they found the doctor's vehicle parked outside. So they thought, Dr. Guy is home.
He's home, yeah.
But when they asked, they were told, Dr. Guy is not far. He can't be very far. The vehicle is here. But we don't know where he is. So they're trying to figure out, where is the doctor? Then Dad's friend remembered there was a match.
There was a match?
Yes.
A football match?
What we call football in Kenya.
Soccer.
Yeah. Between a club called AFC Leopards
and Gor Mahia.
You know that. So he said, what if Dr. Guy went to the stadium? Let's just try. They went, looked around, couldn't find him. Then they thought, maybe he's seated somewhere, we are not seeing him. So they requested the announcer The person who is making...
At the field?
Yes.
At the soccer field?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Please, announcing Dr. Gaia is here. Please meet us at a certain place. We have an emergency. And Dr. Gaia was there.
Oh, wow.
So he comes in a T-shirt, shorts, sport shoes, and I keep on thinking maybe they passed him somewhere. You know, they used to a doctor dressed with...
all the white council and all that, yeah.
So he told them, no, I can't go back. You have a vehicle, don't you? Yes. Let's just head out to hospital. And on the way to hospital, the vehicle's fuel or gas.
What?
And there was no gas station or petrol station, as we call them at home, around.
Wow.
So the doctor told them, no, I will need...
And Dawn has to, she has to be delivered.
I need a doctor.
Oh, wow.
So the doctor told them, I'll jog to hospital. I jogged from my house to the stadium. I will jog to hospital. Well, meanwhile, if you find gas or fuel in good time, please...
Meet me at the hospital.
Do you know he got there before them?
Oh, wow.
He jogged all the way. Then he gets to hospital and he communicated with the team. They prepared the theater. They thought it would be a cesarean section. They prepared the theater. Everything was ready, but there was no electricity that fine Sunday afternoon.
Wow. So challenge over challenge.
Over challenge. They have a generator. However, it doesn't have
no diesel.
No diesel at all. And they have diesel. They do.
Okay.
However, it is locked up.
Somebody has to come and
the
unlock,
person who has the key, we understand, was away drinking somewhere. It's a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
So we are told they suspected he was away drinking. So they have a generator that can't help. They have diesel that's not helping. And a theater that technically now.
Wow. So they find him.
Yeah, so the doctor now, they can't do a cesarean section without power. So they try what they can as they're hoping and praying power will come. They're even thinking of the way they can manually pull me out.
Oh, wow.
That gets to that. And they tried a few things that did not really work. And I am told while they were just not doing anything, just now trying to figure out what next, I made my entrance. I was, after all that, I was just born normally. I just arrived, and that was 6:05 p.m.
Oh, wow.
So I was technically born at dusk.
Yeah.
But I'm called Dawn.
You're called Dawn. Born at dusk, but called Dawn.
Yes, because my parents said that was the beginning of their joy, because dawn can be either a sunrise or a beginning. So they
are the ones who named you Dawn.
Yes. Yes, my grandma had another name, but I was given the other name she has. So they called me that to remind themselves that I was the beginning of their joy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's how it happened. 2 days later, because there were no other complications, I went home. And they took me home, rather, to start a new life. And I was brought up as most of the other children in Africa are brought up with strict parents.
Yeah.
Enough rules. And also knowing what I could and could not do. What I could
So by this time, they know that you have some challenges. Was it obvious?
No, it wasn't very obvious, but with time they could realize that it was hard for me to sit up. You know those milestones that, by this time the baby can sit up. Mm-hmm. I was the kind, if I sat and fell a little bit, I couldn't. You know the way a child manages.
Yes, you could not bring yourself back.
No. So that was one of the challenges. So they realized mobility, I had delayed milestone. And to be very honest, I couldn't walk until just before my 6th birthday.
Okay.
That means my sister, who is almost 4 years younger,
was already walking.
Walked way before. She walked when she was a few months.
Oh, wow.
Before her first birthday. So you can tell. And And I have to make peace with that and realize that I still have to be the best that I can be. It wasn't easy though, but here we are.
Now, I'm sure this story you're telling me, you're hearing from your parents.
Definitely.
So how has it been, or from that time when they started telling you these stories, how did you receive these stories?
There was a time I would cry at the thought of, why would God allow this to happen? There are times I would be grateful, and the thought of they loved me enough to fight to keep me. Later, when I was a teenager and I went through a depression of sorts, I was wishing, why did they just let me die back then? I didn't feel like I wanted to fight anymore. So I've been through all those emotions and seasons of life. But most of all, it made me realize that God doesn't always work the way we want him to.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see, in my opinion, and that's why I keep on telling people, God does not consult you.
Yeah.
You're not his consultant.
Yeah.
If he had asked me, the accident wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And if he permitted it, he would have miraculously protected her from any injury or harm. And even then, my mobility would have been, quote unquote, okay. Because sometimes what I found hard is if we compare ourselves, because if you decide this is the standard and you're not there, you may always feel not good enough. So there are those days I would wonder, why would God allow this? But it also, other than challenge my faith, which it did, and sometimes I would feel broken, it reminded me that God can still use any of us the way he wants. The only thing we need to do is deal with our own attitudes.
Yeah.
And instead of just asking, why me? Maybe ask, what now? Now that I'm here, how best can I live this life that I've been given, knowing, yes, I'm limited. I know there's a time in my country there was this slogan, no human is limited. I choose to say all humans are limited. All of us. You may not have a physical challenge like me or any other, but there will be a limitation of sorts.
Yeah.
Whether it is life expectancy, whether it is the monetary areas, we can't even fly, no matter how good and strong we are.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we are limited in one way or another.
All of us. None of us is a perfect or, quote unquote, there's no abnormal or normal. We are all in the same spectrum. And in the same, we have different challenge. We are challenged differently, as it were. So how was it growing up now with all these challenges for you?
Tough. If I could write the alphabet, I could say T for tough sometimes.
Okay.
But it was also beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful in the sense that I got to realize beauty is not that or a certain way. It's beyond the obvious. It's not just what we see.
Yeah.
I learned that it's not up to me to decide how life goes. It's making the most and the best of every opportunity, no matter how painful. And realizing that even in the pain and the agony that we may go through, and every one of us goes through their own, it may not be like mine. We still have to make the most of every opportunity. Now, looking back, it is even helping me deal with the learners, now that I'm a chaplain, because if I'm given a very discouraged person, I can relate.
Yeah.
I may not know or know your pain, but I know it feels bad when you feel hopeless and helpless.
Yeah.
So now looking back, and that's why I marvel at God, that he may allow something to happen that may not be obvious right now, but should you wait in retrospect, you may learn a thing or two about life.
And I agree with you. With knowing that Kenya, like most of the African countries, have not thought about those who are able or challenged differently, navigate, learn. We haven't as a community learned how to deal with these challenges. It's not until very recently. So I can imagine back in 1982 and all those years that even your playmates, your teachers, the community that you worked with, church, school, and all this, possibly they didn't know how to, to relate with you.
Yeah.
How did you relate with them yourself? They may not know, but when you say that, you did make the best of the moment, how was that actualized in your life, like in those spaces?
First of all is expect not to be understood and accept it. It may not happen the way you would want it to. Some people and children, some made an attempt to reach out or to include me, but most of them were too busy playing. And I learned to be okay being alone. And my mother would keep on telling us boredom is a choice. So maybe you cannot jump, yes. Or maybe you wanted to go for a school trip, you cannot. Can you sit and do something, pray, play, read, sleep, work, clean the dishes, whatever it is, just do something. So for me, it was learning that some people, even to this day, so it's something that has gone through life. Some people are curious. Some would ask, what happened? How can I help you? Is this okay? Some are like, they just shut off that side. They don't want to consider anything. They don't even want to give it time or thought. So you just realize we're all very different, and some people may not understand, and some don't care to understand because in their own pain, they are wondering, why should we even give more time for this? Why, if this person is so slow, why don't we just leave them? If they cannot understand, why involve them? So for me, I've realized my challenge may be physical and obvious and visible, but you could have something or someone else could have something that may not be very visible. And sometimes I feel like our attitudes are a big challenge to us, because if I have to put you down to feel good about myself, then I have a big problem.
Yeah.
Because I shouldn't have to put you down or make you feel not good enough. So that I may feel good enough. If I can't uplift you, then I have a problem. And most of us have that problem. So I realized early in life, I may never get to play all the games, but I can play board games. So my parents taught me a number of board games, the ones you can play seated, mind games, riddles. So they would allow me to do that. Incidentally, they taught me I was still their firstborn and I needed to take care of my siblings.
As it is in Africa,
Yes.
the firstborn is always the one to lead the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes I didn't know how. I remember there's one time our house had disappeared, leaving me with my sister who was just full of energy and a child. And she had placed us on our parents' bed because it was the biggest. And now the child is restless. I've tried talking to her in the vernacular and telling her, please don't move so fast. You will fall off the bed and get injured. Of course, she can't understand. She's a baby. Actually, she's an infant. So I realized now it is my work to keep this child on the bed at whatever cost. I held her legs to keep her from moving. She wiggled her hands. I held the hands. She moved her feet. At the end, I just held her waist so hard. I was like, I'd rather explain to my parents why I injured this waist, but I'm keeping this baby on the bed. Finally, someone else who had gone to the shop came and found her screaming her little self. So, I have always known, do what you can with what you have.
Yeah.
And if you're not able, my parents would not blame you.
Yeah.
And I think they've taught me, just be the best version
of yourself.
They would always question, have you done your best?
Yeah.
And they would even tell you, we don't think you've done your best, because they know you can do better. But I'm glad they've never told me.
Yeah.
And had they done it, I would know better now, that they would never compare me with my sister. The things she does so well, I'm not even able to. The things I can do, she may not do.
Yeah.
So I've learned to just appreciate that.
Yeah, I would have wanted us to shift to something else, but I have this tension in my mind where you're saying that you had to learn how to navigate these spaces. It feels like you were making it tough on yourself to make it easy for other people to understand you. Is that right?
Yes, a bit of that, yes, of course. I'm the kind, knowing myself, now that I know myself a little bit, I don't claim to know myself fully. I know if I let go and relax, I will not do anything. So I would set targets for myself. And to be honest, sometimes I was overambitious. Sometimes it would just be beyond. But enough times they were just things that honestly I should have done and more. So I would do it all the time, like whether it's in my education, whether it is in the family setup, whichever area of life, I know that I will have to answer to God. And of course to my parents, but yes, to God first, about how I live this life that I've been given. So I have to be tough on me. I'm the kind, before I expect anything of you, I expect a higher standard of me. So you want to look down upon me, that's fine. What am I thinking of me? Because that is more important than what you think of me. Whether you think of me well, which would be wonderful, or you think of me badly, which would be sad, but it doesn't bother me now, because you may be very kind to me, but if I'm not kind to myself, it doesn't help.
Wow.
Or very rude. But if I'm ruder to myself, that's even worse.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, I want to hear more about what led you to St. Paul's and theology. All right.
Welcome to Stories Unveiled, a captivating interview program on Kiriaku Waves Radio, where we warmly invite you into the personal journeys of inspiring individuals. Each episode brings you face-to-face with people from diverse backgrounds who have overcome challenges, pursued their passions, and are making a difference in their communities. Through heartfelt conversations, we explore their experiences, struggles, and triumphs, offering listeners a chance to connect, learn, and find encouragement in their own lives. Join us as we tell these stories together, celebrating the resilience and strength of the human spirit. Stay tuned to Stories Unveiled on Kiriaku Waves Radio, where together we celebrate the rich tapestry of our shared humanity.
Optiven offers a wide range of properties in prime locations across Kenya that suit everyday lifestyle and budget. Discover the tranquility of Ocean View Ridge in Vipingo. Enjoy stunning ocean views, modern amenities, and the convenience of nearby beaches with water, electricity, solar streetlight, a gate, and security. Ocean View Ridge offers a safe and comfortable living experience. Ushindi Gardens in Nakuru is another exceptional development. Benefit from the city's vibrant atmosphere while enjoying the peace of your own home. Ushindi Gardens offers a range of amenities including water, electricity, a gate, and much more. It's the perfect place to build your dream home. Escape the hustle and bustle of the city life at the great oasis in Nanyuki. Enjoy the breathtaking scenery and fresh air. This project comes with a fence, gate, and water tower. The Great Oasis provides a secure and comfortable living environment. Experience the coastal lifestyle at Joy Lovers Club in Malindi. Enjoy the beautiful beaches, vibrant culture, and modern amenities. Joy Lovers Club offers a range of amenities including Cabro roads, solar street lights, a perimeter wall, and water. It's the perfect place to invest and enjoy the good life. For more information, call or WhatsApp us on 0723 400 500. Optiven, your gateway to a brighter future.
Welcome to Stories Unveiled, a captivating interview program on Kiriaku Waves Radio, where we warmly invite you into the personal journeys of inspiring individuals. Each episode brings you face-to-face with people from diverse backgrounds who have overcome challenges, pursued their passions, and are making a difference in their communities. Through heartfelt conversations, we explore their experiences, struggles, and triumphs, offering listeners a chance to connect, learn, and find encouragement in their own lives. Join us as we tell these stories together, celebrating the resilience and strength of the human spirit. Stay tuned to Stories Unveiled on Kiriaku Waves Radio, where together we celebrate the rich tapestry of our shared humanity.
Welcome back. This is KWR interview with Reverend Don Gikandi, and it's quite a powerful story for those who may be listening or joining this conversation now. It's a very powerful story, and this is at KWR where we tell our story together. And Dawn is here to tell us her story here at our home, and I'm really inspired and also challenged in many ways and still wrestling with a few things. But we'll leave that now. You're growing up, you know, the challenges there be, and ask, now you said you were taking a journey as a mathematician, then along the journey that you set aside, but eventually you chose theology. Why?
That's a really good question, Reverend. First of all, in as much as I chose, I don't think I had a choice. I think the Lord chose it for me before I could make it my choice. So after the journey with mathematics, which looking back had started because I was hoping to have a quiet life with very little interactions with people. You can imagine theology is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And I realized part of what informed that decision was I was still wrestling with, do I really need to deal with people that much? In all honesty, I'm an introvert.
Okay.
I'm an imperfect perfectionist. So
Imperfect perfectionist.
Yes, I love things perfect, though they don't always go that way. So I was feeling sometimes people complicate my life. They still do. However, I didn't feel like I have the energy to deal with all that. So to be honest, I was trying to run away from all that. So I thought, why don't I do this mathematics? First of all, I love a challenge. Mathematics is challenging. Secondly, I'll deal more with figures than people. Maybe I'll meet one or two human beings. Maybe someone needs to ask a question, or there's a meeting, or something small, but not too much human interaction. So I still think, in as much as I loved mathematics, my inspiration was a bit off. And I was kind of running away from facing the challenge that I had with the pain people had caused me and many other things. So when I realized that and realized until I do this from the right inspiration, I wouldn't feel fulfilled, and I wouldn't advise anyone to just do things for money. Yes, I know we need to pay bills, But if money is your only inspiration, you can do it, but it won't be fulfilling. So I wanted something that challenging, yes, but at the end of the day, can I do it if I never have to get paid? Yeah. So I kept on feeling this pull towards theology.
Okay.
And I had a few questions of my own about God and how he deals with the
Question of meaning and existence,
exactly.
maybe?
So in my mind, I thought, let me go do this degree. I will live with all the answers. I'll be honest with you, Reverend. I still don't have all the answers.
He doesn't have all the answers.
And I don't expect to get all the answers because they're in the realm of the divine God. But I've learned that a few questions were answered, but most of all, I realized that God will still be God. I will still be his child, his subject in the kingdom.
Yeah.
But I'm making that short. It was a whole journey.
Yeah.
So when I came to that realization, I decided I won't run away anymore. And there could be many me's, if I can call them that, out there wrestling, struggling. Let me do this theology, learn what I can, and if God permits me, I will be able to present him in a way that people understand.
Okay.
Sometimes it got tired when you hear all the jargon, and I have no problem with it. I'm a theologian, I can handle it. But sometimes the people just need simple faith. So to the simple, be simple. To the complicated,
Be complicated.
Be complicated and inspire their minds. So for me, that was the journey that I took. I didn't even know whether I would ever get ordained.
Okay.
But I wanted, wherever I interact with people, to give them something sound, something good, as I share part of my journey with them, and wait and see what the Lord has in store. And now I've seen part of what he has in store, though I still think I will discover more with the passage of time. So that was part of what drove this. So I enrolled. And the studies went on, and I will be honest with you, there were bad days, terrible days. There were also wonderful, wonderful days. There were days I was wondering, am I still called?
Yeah.
Yes. And if we are being honest, most of us theologians,
there's always that
ministers,
moment of doubt.
So I struggled with it. And I kept on asking God, reveal yourself to me. And I even told God, should there ever come a time when I'm not in your will, let me know. And I don't want to ever get ordained if it's not your will. I will be the first person to admit it. If it's not your will, you do what you do best. You bring a situation. And if it's in your will, I will not stand in your way again.
Yeah.
Because you will still have your way. I don't want to have more trouble than I already do. So I went to school, finished, went for, I think, one interview that I was really discouraged about working in a church in the area of the youth. Gave up on trying to work in church.
So you're done with school.
Yes, 4 years.
You haven't started to think ordination, but you are looking for a meaningful way of now using the knowledge that you have tapped.
Yes.
And you found youth ministry.
I had already been a youth leader at the different levels in church.
Okay.
So, and the Lord had given me a way of reaching to them in their darkest places enough times. So I thought, maybe I could do this. I even volunteered as a counselor to some primary school children somewhere. So as I'm doing all this, a job opportunity comes up. Sometimes in the churches, they announce they need to employ a youth coordinator. And someone told me, try. I was like, I'm not so sure, but okay. Let me just try.
Okay.
I called a friend of mine. We applied. None of us got picked.
Okay.
And I thought I never want to do this again.
Okay.
But later on, we both got ordained
Oh,
at
wow.
different times.
Wow.
And we have seen God through it also. That didn't work out. And I went through all the interviews. You will know
Yeah.
you interviewed me.
I was part of
I
it,
thank God
and I'm
for
as
it.
proud as I can, because I think you really deserved to be in the ministry. And the few moments I sat with you, when we were doing the interviews, it came out very clearly that this is not something you are sick, like you're being pushed into. Yeah. So were you seeking ministry in a parish or any form of ordination that would lead you when you're seeking ordination? Did you have anything in mind that possibly this is how I want to go, or you were open?
I was open, though in my mind I was really praying I get wherever I would be. Because, in the church setup, there's a mix of everybody.
Yeah.
I had hoped wherever I would be, that the Lord would give me an opportunity to reach out to the groups that feel forgotten. I had prayed about that, though I was not sure how to go about it. Also the young people, because I was feeling this is the time we either lose them or bring them closer and give them a firm foundation if they missed it at church school. So I felt there is so much work to do, but I was not sure whether I would be posted to the parish.
Okay.
Sometimes I used to feel like there is bias or pity, and sometimes I still feel it even within the church and in other places. So I didn't have too many expectations. I just knew wherever I would be sent, I would serve and serve faithfully to the end.
Yeah. But knowing that, if, say, for example, they just decided to post you anywhere, say in the rural congregation, the terrains are very challenging.
Yes.
Would you still have gone?
I would.
Okay.
I'm the kind, you don't refuse something, you first go. Part of what we are trained to do anyway, both in the church and even as a family. And you don't just give up. My parents hammered that into us. You don't just give up and say, I can't. Have you even tried? And they kept on asking me questions that I did not like, but one of the questions I'll never forget from my parents is, will you ever be called a victor? What kind of battle have you fought and won if you've lost this one? Whatever this is. So if you are to be called a victor, you will have to win this battle. So for me, my parents put it in me. There are times I would tell people, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for my family. I'm also doing this for my church family as well. So I knew if I was posted there. And it started when I was a youth leader. One time, our youth was just suffering. The leaders were some too busy disappearing off. Then we'd be left without leaders, and I would find myself taking notes, trying to organize, just because we don't have, quote unquote, the leader designated doesn't mean we will sit and stare at each other. So at one point when we were having youth elections, we were told, all the youth meet at that place in the church and give us your leaders. We went. And while we were there, some people who had never come to the youth fellowship started saying, we return the leaders. And I told them, no, they had even requested we don't return them. And I wouldn't accept we return someone who has not even worked. We don't just need to have a chairman with a name who doesn't work. We need people who are working. So as we are arguing, someone says, we elect you. I'm like, no, don't elect me, because I may not get to all the places where the youth need to go hiking, all these places. And I don't want to be a leader who is not present. So after back and forth, when we had our patron there with us, they said, no, we really want her. Because I kept on telling them, don't just choose people for the sake of just choosing them. And finally the patron asked them, now that you're insisting on on her. If she needs to go to a certain place, will you make sure she gets there? And unanimously they said yes. And I told them, I know you're lying. Some of you never even come to the youth fellowship, but Lord, you have had them. And since it's your work, help me not to disappoint you. And do you know, I would sacrifice my little money. Sometimes take a tuk-tuk, you know that? Three-legged small, like a tricycle.
Yeah, the tricycle, a motorcycle with three wheels.
And a covering, yes. I would take that. Sometimes I would pay a taxi. Sometimes it would cost me, but I was determined that the work of God would not go down on my watch. And He was faithful. He provided. I may not have had the most money, but it started there, that I will not give up on this. I took vows. If I do the wrong thing, the vows will affect me, not these interesting human beings who have decided to thrust me into that area. So I took the vows of Lord, I intend to be faithful. And it helped. The times I wanted to give up, I would remember the vows. And even to this day, when I feel very disappointed in God or situations, I remember my vows. I'm like, I took them when I was sober, and I took them and promised to be faithful. So everything I would say from my childhood to teenage, even when it was so dark and difficult for me to adulthood, and now that I'm getting closer to retirement in a number of years, of course they're not those few, I will do it to the end.
So wow, powerful story. Now you get ordained within the P.C.E.A. And you're posted where?
I was ordained in a place called Juja.
So you said that you got ordained at Juja?
Yes. That was Juja Parish. It still is in the Rebecca Presbyterian, where I spent my practical year. So in our setup, you are posted to a certain place, probably, in fact, preferably not where you used to. First of all, to give you a feel of a different setup in ministry, and also a place where you can exercise the gifting and learn what it is to be in a church and to deal with different people. Of course, you're under a minister who's been there before, who has gone through the process. So that was my practical year. You spend time doing the small things. First of all, observing, then you're given duties, and there are reports, and you're being checked, and there's a panel to look into all that. So I was ordained, I was licensed. We have the licensing first, where the licensing, we were given the collar and allowed to preach. Then later there's the ordination, and we have the other vestments, and now the process is complete. All that is done at the practical training place or that parish, unless there's a problem or a challenge. And then you're posted. We have a committee that posts ministers. So you're posted to different places. I would say you may not have a say in that. So I was posted to Bahati Matayas Parish in Nairobi, Eastlands. And I stayed there for quite long. I never thought I'd even stay that long. I was there for more than 7.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a long time.
And incidentally, I had once been a member of Bahati Matayas.
Is that so?
As a child. You remember the days we stayed in...
Yeah, you stayed in Buruburu,
There was P.C.E.A. Buruburu was not there. So the nearest Presbyterian church was Bahati.
So you're coming home.
I was coming home, though very few people remember me. So I always tell people, you never know who you're bringing up. It could be your next minister, next president, next parent. So
now you get into Bahati. Are there other ministers who are able differently by this time ordained in P.C.E.A. that you could learn from or you could tap wisdom from?
Well, there was one, and I'm not so sure which came first, whether it was his disability or his ordination. he was a chaplain with the armed forces. There was one, and he doesn't have part of his limb leg. So I'm not so sure which came first.
Okay.
So there was that one. We have 2 ministers who are hearing impaired. One was definitely ordained not too long ago. The other one, I'm not so sure at what point he was ordained. We have a minister who has a slight challenge with his arm, though, and another one, he has a shorter leg. Most of them, honestly, I don't even think would want to. Oh, yeah, there was one who was in an accident and it affected his speech.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. So most of them would not want to be recognized in with their disability.
Okay.
So other than knowing them as who they are, I have no problem. In fact, when I got to Bahati, I made sure that everyone with a challenge in Bahati, we created a fellowship for them. And even invited the society who are not Presbyterians once in a month would have a fellowship. And now we even have a special needs awareness Sunday.
Oh, wow.
They had it in August. We started in April, but with time it was shifted. And to this day, every service that goes live in Bahati has sign language interpretation.
Wow.
We had to make sure, because there's no special world for those with challenges. So why don't we make this world a place where we all belong? You know, what amazes me is that when you have a child, you don't force this child to eat grown-up food. You don't say, this house we are eating together is our food with...
Stable food.
Yeah, with beans and maize. You're kind enough to remember this child doesn't have the capacity to chew this food. And until then, you will change that food for the child. I also find it interesting that when we have a child, you even make faces and make sounds that are just sometimes ridiculous. Gaga, boo, boo, goo. And you can do that without shame to get to the level. And please do it. But if you can do that for a newborn or an infant or a toddler, why can't we reach out to those who may need sign language? Why don't we put ramps? And it saddens me. We did, even for our church at the highest level, put it in the resolutions of the General Assembly that very few have done anything to implement, that our churches, the government, our places, and I've seen in the United States of America and other places, people try, but you will find that our beautiful churches, beautiful they may be physically, but accessibility, not good at all. Why can't we build a place where, we are aging. We have even aged within this time. We are still having our interview. We are not getting stronger. There's some time the body will be weak, whether general weakness or illness or something else. Why don't we create a place where even in my retirement, I can access my hands?
That's right.
Even when the bones are feeling a bit, whatever it is, I can still survive. So my plea to the church is, although some people don't see the importance of that, and for me, I want to be a voice for the voiceless. Why don't we even learn we know the sign language is contextual to every place. Why don't you learn it? Because at one point, the deaf may not talk like you, but you can attempt to talk like them, to communicate, and to pass the love of Christ to them. So for me, it is that area where we all belong. And my parents taught me that I belong. There's a day I was feeling very sorry for myself and I didn't want to go. And my father looked at me and said, we are going as a family. You're a member of this family. Get into the car.
Oh, wow.
So we are not leaving you because you want to feel sorry for yourself.
Oh.
We are going as a family. So in the family of God, where are we living? Those who, and the Bible even says the parts of the body that are weaker should be given the help and the importance they need. So for me, it's that time where how can we best make this the Church of Christ?
So in a way, what I'm feeling, and this is not a judgment I'm placing on the church, you feel like the church was not ready for your ministry in a way?
Yes.
Okay.
They were not at all ready. And I have had remarks done by people at different levels of leadership and membership. Why bother? How many are they? Are they bringing in any money? Why don't we focus on those that have money, more people? Yes, the majority may not need this service. But if you were the one there, wouldn't you want to be included? And who said the only inspiration for this would be money?
Yeah.
And besides, some of these challenges, if we invest in them, even these persons can make their own money. And if not, one thing I like to remind people is that we are human beings. We are not human doings. Even though the only thing you can do is breathe, you still have value.
Yeah.
And until the good Lord takes you home, you have to stay here with us. So yes, the church is not ready. And it had gotten to a point where sometimes the priorities are just elsewhere, where people ask, how much money is there? Why are we spending all this? I find it funny. We will eat and drink on the church's budget. We will budget for that. But we won't budget to have an interpreter come to us.
Or a ramp.
And what amazes me, in fact, why can't we have the ramp? It will serve all of us. Than stairs that will serve some of us.
Yeah.
Why don't we put that consideration? Why do we only want the aesthetic, like beautifying, whatever we call beauty, because for me that's not beauty anyway.
Yeah.
Value of the church, why don't we include people? I think we are being selfish to want to keep some people out, and it is our work to make sure everyone belongs. Strangely enough, I've been talking of hearing impairment or being on a wheelchair. There's someone else who may be on the, we have disabilities that are not visible.
Mm-hmm.
They're invisible in a sense that it may show up behaviorally. Someone may be having a challenge that's not very easy to pick out. You may be, or maybe the challenge is not that much, or it's deteriorating, maybe like loss of sight or hearing, or someone may have a challenge maybe on the autistic spectrum. There are different challenges like that, but everyone, provided they are allowed to thrive, there's still something we can do together.
Absolutely.
So can we just find out how best?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that these children are not disciplined. We like placing blame.
Yeah.
Why can't these parents discipline this child? Maybe this child is hyperactive, and maybe there's a trigger or a motivation. What if we let this child learn in a way that allows them to thrive in that area? So for me, it's before we run into any conclusions, let's appreciate that there's something we may not know. And that's what I was telling you. As far as I know myself, there are things about me I may not be even aware of other than God. So for me, the church is not ready, and sometimes the church is very selfish. The church has wounded. Unfortunately, it should be the hospital for sinners, where we come and address our wounds and we walk together, but we have wounded our own. So the church has all manner of excuses, most of all finances, or it will take time. I noticed, or something my mother used to do for the tradition I come from, when we are getting into service, we do a procession where the first person leads with the Bible, then we go following 2 by 2. The elders, ministers are at the back. And whenever my mother noticed she was in the program, and our church had someone who had a limp in her walking, she would make sure she walks behind her.
Oh.
Just to make sure her pace
is what is setting the pace of everybody else.
And the rest of the procession has gone. And then there are these two. And they're okay. So, why can't we just step it down and go at this I know it will take time, and we are trying to move fast. But she belongs.
She does.
Yeah, so.
Which want me to ask now that you did mention. I think at some point you mentioned that you are chaplain. So I'm assuming you left Bahati to become a chaplain.
Yes.
So where are you in the chaplaincy before I ask the question I want to ask?
Okay. So I was a parochial minister. That means a minister in a parish for more than 7.5 years, as I said before. And after that, I was posted again, and I found myself being a chaplain. A chaplain is a minister in an institution. It could be a hospital, the armed forces, a school, such kind of thing. In Kenya, mostly those are the ones we have. But as myself, I'm an institutional minister, a school chaplain, and I have currently about, in fact, 20 schools, 17 that are sponsored by the church, and 3 that are privately owned by members of the church.
And your work?
So my work is quite simple and quite complicated. Simple in the fact that matters, spiritual growth and programs, I have to organize. And I don't have to do it alone, but I have to make sure there's sound doctrine, there's the space and organization for that, counseling, listening to our learners. And I have that vast array from 3 years when they get to school, because I have primary schools, secondary schools, or high schools. I have both male, female, boarding where they stay in school, day schools where they go home, deaf and hearing, male and female. So you can imagine, the last time I checked, though I have not been able to get the exact numbers, my estimate is about 9,000 learners.
Oh, wow.
Across board.
That you interact with.
Yes, in the 20.
Oh, wow.
In the 20 institutions.
That's a large number. It's more than a mega church.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my word.
And I'm glad, because we get to shape the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. So is it different in the these institutions of learning, or in terms of, your accessibility and how you navigate your way around? Or is it just like the church, which has not been ready, even though they are training and receiving people who are called into these ministries? Yeah.
So accessibility, bad, both everywhere, and especially in Africa and Kenya, where I stay and work. It's been tough. It's been really tough. Some places, they've made arrangements, and they're improving as we go. But most of our structures are from bygone years.
Yeah.
And not many people want to even make the adjustments that could be helpful. So accessibility is a problem. Even the terrain.
Okay.
There's some of our schools are on a hilly place, so you can imagine even climbing up and down.
Yeah.
So there are times I have to be lifted, which I wouldn't enjoy very much, but I have come to accept, provided I get to where the students are. When I was a parochial minister, getting to go to burials, incidentally, I went a lot to Nyeri, my home area. Muranga and other places are just ups and downs, valleys and mountains. As an institutional minister, the burials are fewer. We've lost a number of learners, pupils and students, parents, but they are not as many.
Many, yes, in a parochial situation.
In a parochial situation.
Okay.
But they're still there. So my number of burials have gone lower. My time has gone I don't even know how to say it, because every school has its own tradition, so to speak. Like the boarding schools, I do counseling in the evening when they're having their own private studies. So if anyone wants to see me one-on-one, we can do that. For the day schools, either go during the day if there's an emergency at any time, or maybe during lunchtime or in the afternoon, maybe when they're having sports, or there's an hour they have counseling. So with every school, we try to work within what best fits them. And sometimes with different situations, including sometimes the students out of desperation have gotten into weird beliefs, the occult and other things. So you need to sit and reason with them. And they will, if you're patient enough, they will even tell you they cannot see the profit. Or some may insist it's profitable.
Yeah.
But just help them see that they can do better with their lives. So that may not take a minute or two, it takes long. So sometimes my hours go way into the night. And sometimes very early because I go for assembly in the primary schools and there's a lesson for the pastoral program. Sometimes there's a group counseling. Then we hold prayers, especially towards the major national exams. So depending, and then we have meetings for the principals and the head teachers and for the volunteers that help me work, for the ministers, because I belong to a presbytery, which every minister has to attend, and the elders. So with all these things put together, sometimes the program will clash. Sometimes there's an issue, then the higher officers did something. So it takes a lot of planning, coordination, and learning to work with others, which the Presbyterian system enables us to do, because it's not a one-man show. So we learn to, it's first amongst equals and learning to work together. So but there are those duties that the chaplain has to do. I have to vet who's coming to preach to our learners, not just anyone. Also make sure I safeguard the spiritual aspects of the school.
Well, before we land this plane, because I didn't want us to land it now because of time, since you have talked about challenges from day one when you were born into the family situation, the school situation, the church situation, and the chaplaincy situation, what are some of the practical things that you would propose to the church, because we are not reinventing the wheel here? What are some of the things that need to happen to make it ministry for those who are challenged differently easier and inclusive?
First of all, a change of mindset, and do not think of it as a burden, which already that's work in itself, because the people who are in the decision-making places have to accept this and not do it out of just pity. It's the right thing to do. So, in fact, sometimes after we talk, people say, oh, we'll change. Then we forget and status quo continues. So the church needs to change an attitude and remind ourselves that we all belong. One thing I love about the church is that there's a place for everyone, whether it is a toddler, whether it is a youth. We even have groups. In Bahati, we even had one called the Stephen Ministry, where they would help the bereaved, visit with them. We had one for the aged, or they were called the Gold People Ministry. We had others for single parents or widowed. You can come up with these programs honestly and enriching lives. So why don't we, first of all, make our churches and buildings everywhere, whether in state or in church, but we are talking church now, so in church accessible, and make it part of the rules and regulations. You know the way every church has rules and regulations? Let it not be debatable that everyone has to. There's a man who said he'd rather go to a bar than to a church. Because he can get into the bar.
But there's accessibility in the bar.
It is more accessible. No, surely.
Wow, that is not right.
No, that is not right. So can we be more accommodative? And it starts with our own attitudes. And then when we agree on something, can it be implemented no matter what it will cost? Disability is costly. So let's not pretend it's not. But if we set things right, it may cost us now, but it will save us monetary issues later, but most of all, the inclusivity and the comfort that you can't even quantify with currency or cash. So let church leadership learn and accept and unfortunately, when we're having these seminars, none of the church leaders are there.
Yeah.
We leave the parents and usually women because many men have disappeared.
Wow.
There are very few men like my father, and they're there, and I respect them for that. Although some women have also disappeared as well, so anyone can disappear. So can we find a church that asks, how best can we represent Christ to you and to me? What can I learn from you? What can you learn from me? How best can we exist together? Because we are part of the body of Christ and we need to take care of each other. So it needs an attitude adjustment. I think the one challenge with challenges of being able differently, it hits home that you are limited. And most of our church leaders want to feel powerful and in control. Disability has a way of humbling you, and many of us don't want to be humbled. So you accept and you learn to make the most of what you have. And if there are assistive devices, let's get them. Some of them, they are so costly, we need insurance, yes, but can we help those that need them? And when they're there, let's use them the right way. So there's a lot to be done, and I would say it's not something we can do today only. It's a journey, but we can't give up now. Let's do the best that we can. Also, assessment. Sometimes we may even be thinking someone is not well mentally, and maybe they just didn't hear you. Or maybe they were assisted in a certain way to trigger the inspiration. So let's get the assistive devices, let's get a change of attitude. Let's remember that God can use our pain and disappointments, and He's still God. Whether we have been able differently, whether we've been able the way we thought we should be, God is still there, and He's not consulting us, as I said. He's enabling us in our woundedness, in our limitations. And let us not limit God or get mad at Him that He has to work in a specific way, but be in awe of His sovereignty in our pain. And that, in fact, I used to hit my walking stick a lot until I realized God has used it to make me more stable. And it's also a point of conversation when someone asks, what is this? Especially children who have no filters. And you start a conversation there. Start a conversation there. So, and be ready to be challenged, be ready to answer questions that may be uncomfortable, but also be ready to receive grace and peace. And knowing that God is still in control.
Well, thank you very much. It's humbling and also powerful, even those suggestions that you're raising. But before I let you go, I know that you are involved with the ecumenical movement. Could you talk a little bit about that and how you got into it? And what were the reasons that led you into the ecumenical movement?
Okay. In a nutshell, ecumenical movement is about the different denominations coming together for common good and learning from each other. We will always be different because that's what makes us who we are in our own uniqueness, but there's also a lot that brings us together, especially Christ. Whether the way we express ourselves is different, we have the love of Christ and salvation and remembering eternity as well. So the ecumenical movement is that space that we come together and learn together and walk this journey together. As you're saying, telling our stories together as well. So the ecumenical movement shows in different ways. There are different bodies. In my country, and many countries have that, we have the National Council of Churches of Kenya, where there is a group, an umbrella that brings different denominations together. Sometimes we can't even agree on everything, but we learn to accommodate one another. So there are different groups like that. Then at the African level, we have the All Africa Conference of Churches, the AACC. Then at the world level, we have groups like the World Council of Churches that brings all those together now, the different, even continental groups. But then there are also some that are aligned more with the denomination and workings. Like, for example, from the Presbyterian background, we are Presbyterian in government, Reformed in theology. So there is a world communion of Reformed churches. Or in Africa, we have the African Communion of Reformed Churches, so WCRC or ACRC. So these groups bring the people like-minded, whether it is in a certain denomination or working of things, or generally everyone. Like now the World Council of Churches, that Thursdays in Black campaign, yes, when I am on a Thursday, I'll dress in black towards the world without rape and violence, those kinds of things. But we've been around the world learning from the different groups, learning from how people work together. Like we had a time where we were going to a certain country, and we look at the positive things, the negative, or the positive we're calling celebrating the gifts, the negative we're calling facing the wounds, and what we're calling transformation. We were saying let's try to transform the injustices via positiva, via negativa, and via transformativa. So every setup is different, but when you're in that space, you learn that what may have worked in your context may be different in another, but we have learned to accommodate each other. There's a country I went to where I am Presbyterian. I was being helped to navigate. We were climbing places. I was being held by a Jewish rabbi and a Roman Catholic priest. Someone took a photo of us and was like, ecumenism right here. Because we just loved. And with that, I stopped seeing countries as countries. After being involved with the ecumenical movement, you hear a certain name, it reminds you of someone or some people you may know, and you've learned to deal with that. So for me, the ecumenical space has been, and God has used my limitations or disabilities in there, because I would go and some people would ask questions. My team would help me along, the team we were with. So God has, and in fact, some of those places I was picked because of the disability. It's not all negative. It has also been used by God to open opportunities, and I've been to quite a number of countries, over 25 around the world. The ecumenical movement.
You're quite traveled, yeah?
Humbly so. So, and I've learned to just trust in God through the process. So if you get an opportunity, the ecumenical movement is amazing. And I've seen a bit of ecumenism even here with the church we have.
Yes, absolutely. So the journey started, and you are where you are, and you said that one of the reasons you wanted to study theology is to understand a few things about yourself. From where you stand right now, have you found meaning in what you do, and how does the future look like?
I have found meaning. First of all, I've learned that I'll never fully understand God. That was a big one for me. I thought after doing the degrees and everything, I'd understand God. I will never understand God fully, neither will you. Neither will any of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we learn that God reveals himself, sometimes ever so slowly, sometimes in a big way immediately. In the way he chooses, not the way we order him. We can't even order him. So I started out by thinking, if I know more about him and about me, it would be good. So I've learned a bit more. Not enough as I would have thought back then. But now I'm getting stronger in knowing that God will be sovereign and mysterious as well. And I'm on this journey. I've wanted to resign, unfortunately. Then he reminded me I did not call myself. So I cannot kick myself out of that which did not start with me. And even in my woundedness, I should still serve and look beyond the problem, look beyond the challenge, and keep my eyes focused on Jesus, the author and the finisher of my faith.
Amen.
So I don't know what exactly he has in store for me, but this I know for sure. He will never leave me, nor forsake me.
Absolutely.
And one thing that resonates with my heart is I need to always trust, serve. For me, it's even on my clocks and everywhere. I always say serving God's purpose, trusting God's timing.
Oh, wow.
So I have to serve his purpose in the small and in the big ways. And then I have to trust his timing.
Amen.
Because sometimes I'm in such a hurry, he's delaying. He's going and I want to delay. So I have to serve his purpose.
Amen.
And trust his
Wow.
timing.
That's a powerful way of wrapping it up. And in fact, you remind me of two books that I have read. I don't know whether you've read them. One of them is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and the other one is Finding My Way Home by Henry Nouwen. And in both books, the first one talks about how do you find meaning, and he gives a list of things that you can do. First of all, getting to have somebody that you love, doing what you love, and keeping yourself busy and looking focused to a future. That is one way that we find meaning. And in Henry Nouwen's book, he challenges us, with the two sets of power and powerlessness, and how we believe in a God who started his journey as a powerful God, yet powerless. And eventually his powerlessness become our power. So listening to your story, it puts me right there, that you continue searching for meaning. You're doing what is best, or to the best of your ability and what you feel called by God to do. And at the same time, you are seeking and searching God through powerlessness, yet so powerful. Because I think that's how that's how I've read your story or listening to your story. I want to make an invitation as we wrap it up, because we have a project that is, I don't know if Mary talked to you about it. It's called the Gedima Project. This is in Nyeri.
Yes.
And we would love you to be part of us. Please. In December. We'll keep you updated.
I'd love to.
And we will look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, I will.
But most of all, I'm so grateful that you accepted our invitation to California, and that you became such a huge blessing, not only to the Kenya Mission Network Conference, but also to the Church of Amazing Grace International. We are forever grateful, and we are looking forward to many more chances to have you around and to have you talk to us and challenge us as you have. So, my sister, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you until we see each other.
Wow, thank you.
Amen.
I'm blessed. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for being part of my journey. And wherever the Lord leads, I'm looking forward to working with you. Whether it's in Gedima, whether it's in California or around the world.
Yeah.
Let's do his work.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right.
Blessing.
Thank you so much.